The Dutch East India Company did not simply trade spices. It turned public money, sea power, private shares, and controlled scarcity into a corporate machine that could move markets before most people even knew the market had changed. I'm Simon, and this is the birth of modern market manipulation inside a 17th century trade empire. The VOC was not just a company. It was a state-backed weapon with a balance sheet, a monopoly charter, and the legal right to act like a state wherever profit led it. Start in Amsterdam. The Dutch Republic was small, rich, and pressed by larger powers. It did not have endless land or royal treasure. Its edge was sharper: merchants, ships, credit, ledgers. A taste for risk that most courts did not yet know how to price. Before the VOC, long trade was often funded one voyage at a time. Investors put silver into one ship, waited months or years, and hoped it came back full. The risk was savage. A storm could erase the stake. War could erase it. A bad season in Asia could turn a dream return into dead capital at sea. The Dutch answer was bold: pool the money, stretch the time frame, build a permanent company. Let investors buy into a structure that could keep sending ships, keep replacing losses, keep gathering news, and keep compounding power across many voyages. In 1602, the VOC received a charter, giving it monopoly rights over Dutch trade east of the Cape of Good Hope and west of the Strait of Magellan. That was not a soft license. It was commercial sovereignty. The company could sign treaties, build forts, wage war, and bargain with rulers. In plain finance terms, the state gave a private firm the tools of empire. That changed the risk profile. A lone merchant faced asymmetric risk in the worst form. One ship could ruin him. The VOC flipped the model. It spread risk across fleets, ports, forts, stores, armed guards, investors, and years of trade. If one ship failed, the system still moved. If one market slowed, another could carry the return. The firm became larger than any single voyage. That scale created liquidity. Shares could be bought and sold, so investors had a way out before the spice ships returned. The VOC did not just move goods, it turned future trade profits into financial claims. The spice route became something close to an asset class. This was new capital behavior. A farmer might wait for harvest, a prince might wait for tax, but VOC investors were learning to trade claims on future cash flows. A ship still had to cross the world, yet the profit could be priced in Amsterdam before the cargo appeared on the quay. That gap between real goods and market belief was powerful, and it was dangerous. But here is where the story turns darker. Once a company controls the route, the fleet, the fort, the storehouse, the timing, and the news, trade stops being open. It becomes a managed market. The VOC knew spices were not prized only because Europe wanted flavor. They were prized because supply was narrow, sea travel was risky, and access could be blocked. Pepper, cloves, mace, and nutmeg moved through weak links. Whoever controlled the links could control the price. The company treated scarcity as an asset. It did not just answer demand, it shaped supply. In the Spice Islands, especially around nutmeg and cloves, the VOC pushed for tight control of output and export. It used treaties, exclusive deals, armed pressure, and direct force to keep rivals away. The aim was not open trade, the aim was pricing power. That is monopoly logic in its cleanest form. The hardest version of this played out in the Banda Islands, where nutmeg was rare and margins were immense. The VOC treated those islands not as partners in trade, but as a supply base to be locked down. Its control was harsh, coercive, and designed to make one scarce product answer to one corporate buyer. If too much product reached Europe, prices fell. If rivals reached the source, margins shrank. If local producers could sell to anyone, the company lost leverage. So the VOC tried to narrow the exits. Growers, ships, stores, and buyers had to pass through a system built to keep the company between the source and the final buyer. The spice did not just travel, it was trapped. Then came the quieter weapon, information. Amsterdam investors did not see Asia in real time. News moved by ship, through bad seas, war zones, and long delays. Directors and connected traders could know more than small shareholders. They knew which fleet was late, which fort had held, which cargo was near, and which price might move. In a market where news arrives in months, even a few days can become leverage. That is the base of market manipulation, not magic, not noise. Information asymmetry. The VOC's directors, the Heron 17, sat at the center of the machine. They had to place capital across ships, wages, arms, forts, stores, envoys, and dividends. This was not simple trade, it was global capital allocation, under war, distance, weather, and politics. Every ship was a bet, every fort was an insurance cost, every treaty was a claim on future margin. Every convoy was a shield around pricing power, yet control is never free. To hold a monopoly, a firm must pay to enforce it. Ships rot, sailors die, forts need guns, clerks steal, governors cut local deals, warehouses burn, rivals adapt. The same force that creates monopoly returns also creates a deep thirst for capital. So the VOC became hooked on scale. More ships to guard routes, more forts to guard ships, more staff to run forts, more payouts to calm investors, more pressure on Asian producers to protect European margins. The machine had to feed itself, and for a long time it worked. The Dutch used corporate structure like a weapon. They did not need to hold every field or city. They needed decisive nodes, a port here, a fort there, a treaty on one island, a warehouse in another, a fleet moving at the right season. This was not empire as a painted map. This was empire as a controlled supply chain. The VOC also fused public and private interest in a dangerous way. If the company gained, investors gained. If the company spread Dutch power, the state gained. If the company used force to protect trade, that cost could be framed as the price of commerce. Profit wore the dress of national policy. That made the firm hard to challenge. A rival merchant was not facing another merchant. He was facing a chartered system, backed by capital markets, naval force, law, and state favor. This was the corporate empire. But the design carried its own collapse risk. Monopoly can blunt discipline. When margins seem safe, managers start to mistake control for skill. When a firm has state backing, it can survive errors that would kill a smaller house. That survival is useful at first. Later, it hides rot. Over time, graft, weak oversight, debt pressure, war costs, and shifts in trade broke the model. The spice empire grew heavy. The routes still existed, the forts still stood, and the shares still had a name. But the cost of control began to chase the profit. That is the post-mortem. The VOC created one of history's great financial structures by turning long trade into pooled capital, guarded routes, forced scarcity, and tradable shares. It proved a company could act like an empire without wearing a crown. It also proved the danger. When a corporation gains the power to control markets, shape supply, use force, manage news, and lean on the state, the line between trade and rule vanishes. The VOC did not invent greed. It built an operating model around it. That is why the story still feels modern. A distant supply chain, investors chasing yield, directors with better information than the market, scarcity turned into pricing power, state protection behind private gain, public trust held together by a growth story. Strip away the sales and spice, and the structure is easy to recognize. The Dutch East India Company was not just buying nutmeg and pepper. It was buying time, controlling routes, pricing scarcity, and turning the risk of oceans into a corporate balance sheet. For a while, that balance sheet looked unstoppable. Then the cost of control outran the return. Thank you for watching. If you value sharp historical breakdowns of monopoly, leverage, capital, and power, like this video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. So here is the question. Was the VOC the first great multinational corporation, or was it a state-backed market manipulation machine hiding behind the language of trade?